South Alabama runs over ULM. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And knew this was coming. It was a bad week using the FanDuel. Happens. Knew it was coming. Hopefully we'll turn it around next week because I was red hot for 3 weeks. Also want to thank everybody. We almost have 1,600 subscribers. That is outstanding. Maybe an outside shot to get to 2,000 by the end of the year. And we're basically coming off back-to-back record-setting views and downloads. So that was outstanding, right? We set a record 2 weeks ago, and then we upped it this past week. So really appreciate all of your support. Please tell everybody that you know and is into Sunbelt Sports to subscribe. YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. All right, we will go over the South Alabama ball game here in a minute. Arkansas State with a come-from-ahead victory over Troy. That was a crazy ball game. And App State gets their first win since the storm. That was a crazy ball game. James Madison with a methodical workman-like victory. That was one of those that we lost. They beat Southern Miss. But South Alabama runs over ULM. And this was, I say this all the time, football is one of those games. It's not like baseball or basketball. We can spin out of control fast. I guess baseball, you can have a big half inning, and that's kind of it. But in basketball, threes can get you back into it. You can call a couple of timeouts. Football, you can't. And this ball game spun out of control for ULM. Oddly enough, after South Alabama fumbled the football on the 1 yard line. Next play, ULM runs for like 30 yards, so they're clear of the end zone, but then they go 3 and out after that, and the snap on the punt sails out of the end zone for a safety. And that was all she wrote. ULM scored 3 more points the rest of the way. They were leading 14-7 and lost 49-17. Ouch. This was the kind of game where we kind of were thinking this would be the way that South Alabama would play for most of the year. I'm sorry, 46-17 was the final score. My apologies. But South Alabama's stats, these are ridiculous stats. Okay, so first of all, they had 526 total yards, 358 on the ground. Let me repeat that. 358 yards on the ground. Now, some of that, if not a lot of it, comes late, but nonetheless, ULM, I thought it was going to be the other way. I freely admit it, and I was wrong. I thought that ULM may hit him in the mouth, and they did for a little bit, although South Alabama scored on their first possession with ease. But then I thought ULM would make the adjustments, and it would be a ball game, and it was a ball game for about, the second part of the second quarter. That was it, right? Because they were down. They were, it was 17-12 at half, ULM. And they got outscored 34-0 in the second half. Gio Lopez with a kind of a nondescript ball game, 18 out of 30 for 168 yards. I don't think he ran it too much, like almost Craig Stevenson covering the game for AL.com was like, he doesn't even want to run. 3 carries, 25 yards, did have a touchdown, but it was Kentrell Bullock and Fluff Bothwell. They flip-flopped possessions, basically. Kentrell Bullock, 18 carries, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. Fluff, the true freshman, 17 carries, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Braylon McReynolds actually got his first career rushing touchdown for the Jaguars. And just a dominating performance for South Alabama. Jamal Pritchett, 11 catches, 89 yards, a lot of underneath stuff. And ULM just could not get going after that. Aiden Armenta was actually 32-17, and he had some really bad throws in the end zone. I don't know if it, you make it a 32-24 ball game or they go for 2, 32-25 ball game, and who knows what happens, but he just did not look good. Ran it a couple of times, but he missed some wide open throws. And he's thrown it to the wrong guy, thrown it to like the tight end in the back of the end zone when he's covered. And I think they had a tight end in the flat, and you throw it 3 yards and he runs into the end zone. Was not the best day for Raynor. Ahmad Hardy had a nice day. 20 carries, 104 yards for the freshman. Hunter Herring, 4 carries. He had a touchdown on the ground, 72 yards. But, ULM finds out what it's like to play on the road. I know they beat Troy on the road, and maybe that's where I made my mistake. Playing on the road is not easy. I think winning on the road, no matter what level you are, in college, certainly, even winning on the road in the pros is hard. Ask the New York Jets. Or the Baltimore Ravens, for that fact of the matter. So winning on the road is hard, and I underestimated how good South Alabama can be, because they can be good, right? This is the 87 points, right? Didn't they do that? I know it was Northwestern State, but 87 points, 48 points. But then they just looked lackluster against Arkansas State, and we weren't sure what they were. I don't even know if they looked all that great offensively against Troy. Defensively, they were really good against Troy. But offensively, they weren't all that sharp. And they come out in this one and have a huge second half. Huge second half. And, we'll go over more of the standings a little bit later. But, the West, technically, is the West wide open? Everybody in the West is rooting for Texas State, because you will have a 5-way tie for first place. All right. The Cajuns would control their own destiny type of situation. Of course, that's the whole point of destiny, is that you don't control it. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. But congratulations, South Alabama. Now we're going to see how ULM reacts, right? Everything was going well. Their only loss this year up to that point was Texas, and now they just got their butts handed to them in a game that they were in and leading at halftime, and fell apart, not only in the second half, but also in that second quarter where they could have taken control of the ball game. Now they're going to Marshall. Now they're going to hit the road again and go to Huntington this week. And, Marshall's coming off a nice win after their meltdown against Georgia Southern. So, we're going to see if ULM can mature a little bit. Let's see they're looking for one more win to get bowl eligible. And let's see who they have here quickly. So they do have Marshall. They still have the Cajuns, which is at home. They have Texas State. Now this is all of a sudden, these are not easy ball games. At Marshall, they get Texas State at home. They're at Auburn, at Arkansas State, and they have the Cajuns. They're not going to be favored in any one of those ball games, right? They're not going to be favored at Marshall. They're not going to be favored at home versus Texas State. Probably not. They won't be favored at Auburn, obviously, and they probably won't be favored at Arkansas State either. They may not be favored depending on what the Cajuns are at the time either. So there's a good shot they're not going to be favored at home, or they're going to be favored at all. And somewhere along the way, they're going to have to get a win that they're not expecting. They've had a few wins that nobody was expecting. But let's see if the maturity level can get there. It's one thing to go out and beat Marshall. It's another thing to play the way they did against South Alabama. So let's see what they do and how they react. And one of those sayings, you don't want to lose the same game twice. So put it behind you, and we'll see what they have for the Thundering Herd this coming week. All right, we will be back. We'll come back and talk Arkansas State. And we mentioned this earlier on this season. Is Jaylen Raynor sophomore slump, improving, or progressing, or both? And you got to like what you saw at the end of the ball game. That's for sure. Still got James Madison win over South Alabama I've got Southern Miss, and App State getting their first win since the storm came in with all that damage and they canceled the Liberty ball game. We will do that right after I tell you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I lost the Syracuse games. I bet on the Pelicans, which was a mistake because it's the NBA, really hard. Had Navy against Notre Dame. Oops. That just did not had Arkansas State. Had ULM. It was a bad week for Schultz. We'll see if we can bounce back next week. We knew it was coming. We'll settle down. Probably bet one too many games too. All right. We'll get better next week. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. This was a crazy football game. Arkansas State and the Trojans. And I had Arkansas State in this one. I didn't think it was going to be close, and it wasn't. It was 20-3 at half, or 23-3 at half. And then Troy comes alive, and Arkansas State is, melting down with fumbles and field goals and punting and fumbles, and had a chance to put it away in the fourth quarter, up 26-24, and they fumble on the Troy 5-yard line. All right. Now Troy goes down and in a 10-play, 80-yard drive takes the lead. Gerald Green with a 2-yard run, and that makes it 31-26. And this was Troy was leading twice, by the way, in this ballgame after being down 23-3. And this is what we talked about. The improvement of Jaylen Raynor in that episode from a few weeks ago and coming into the season. And though he may be statistically in a sophomore slump, it was about overcoming adversity. All right. That putting, the last play behind you or the last series behind you or whatever happened in the first 3 3/4 of the ball game, because you need to go down and put yourself in a position to, a field goal isn't going to do it. You have to score a touchdown. And that's what they did. I mean, that was outstanding. Jaylen Raynor, leads them down there. And eventually Zach Wallace runs in there for a touchdown. Corey Rucker had a big play in this series as well, I thought. He had a big ball game. Let's see the stats here. Raynor, 25 out of 40, 349 yards, but no touchdowns, oddly enough, or interceptions. Does run for 71 yards, doesn't score a touchdown. Zach Wallace had all the scores on the ground. That was 3. Corey Rucker had a huge ball game, 12 catches, 193 yards. And remember, Troy, no Goose Crowder. Matthew Caldwell, 22 for 33, 304 yards, couple of touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, including what were you doing on the last play of the game? You had a chance. Was it with 10 seconds? They just needed a field goal to tie, and Caldwell is forcing it into the end zone, which did not make a lot of sense. Let's see if we have the play-by-play. If it was with 10 seconds left to go. It was with 10 seconds left to go. So I don't have a problem if, you got to force it, but he didn't need to. They were in field goal range, and they had a back coming out of the backfield. And if you dump it off to him and he gets 10 yards and he runs out of bounds, even if he gets 5 or 6 yards, runs out of bounds, you got a shot at a game-tying field goal. I don't know what that throwing in the end zone was all about at that point in time. So, didn't quite get it. I do give Troy a ton of credit for coming back because, as I mentioned, these games can spin out of control. Troy didn't let it spin out of control. Arkansas State couldn't put them away, should have put them away many times, and yet Troy is on the field, couldn't get off the field. Defense was not very good at the end, and just could not stop Arkansas State. It was not many third downs that Arkansas State had. Let me see. That's how you know. converted one. So they had a 9-play, 75-yard drive. They had 3 second downs and 1 a third down. There was not a whole lot of resistance. There wasn't a whole lot of resistance defensively from Troy on that last drive. But it, maybe not seeing the light through the tunnel just yet, but at least maybe seeing the tunnel. We'll see. They get Coastal Carolina at home this week. Coastal Carolina is making a change. Coastal Carolina is 4-3. Troy is 1-7. But Coastal Carolina is making a change. Fire the offensive coordinator. They'll have a couple weeks to prepare for this ball game, having this week off. But this is a chance for Troy to step up, all right, and see if they mature as well. Tough loss, but you guys know I'm always always a bright side kind of guy. And the bright side is that this ball game wasn't 47-10. It was 34-31. Did you have a chance to tie it at the end? Yeah. Should you have tied it at the end? Maybe. I mean, we're putting a lot of faith in a 45-yard field goal or so. Doesn't mean you were going to win, but it's been a minute since Troy was in a football game even, right? I mean, have they been in a football game since the ULM ball game? They lost to South Alabama 25-9. They were not in that Texas State ball game. The last ball game that they were in, folks, was they lost to Monroe 13-9. That's the last ball game they were in. They blew out Florida A&M, got blown out by Iowa, blown out by Memphis, and then, lost to Nevada by 2. So maybe we are seeing, again, maybe not the light, maybe not inside the tunnel, but maybe Troy is at least seeing the tunnel. All right, James Madison, as we move it along. James Madison with a workman-like 32-15 ball game. Southern Miss comes out, I guess, a little motivated. My guy, Reed Stringer, JMU held scoreless in the first quarter. It's only 3-0, but JMU puts up 17 points in the second quarter, led 17-9. And I don't know if they got lackadaisical or whatever the case may be, but they do win 32-15 to the Dukes. They improved to 6-2. They're bowl bound, 2-2 in the conference. Alonzo Barnett, the third, 15-25, only 135 yards, couple touchdowns and an interception. Only gained 3 yards on the ground. George Pettaway for the Dukes, 16 carries, 119 yards and a touchdown. He was good. Ethan Crawford was your starting quarterback for Southern Miss and had some drops, and the offensive line struggling, as we've been told. 11 out of 34, 178 yards and 1 interception. And again, a workmanlike job by James Madison. They scored a combined 7 points in the first and fourth quarters. So not James Madison's strongest effort, but the result is a win. They're going bowling. Let's see who James Madison has left. James Madison has Georgia State left at home. That should be a win. Huge ball game at Old Dominion. They're at App State, and they have Marshall. They're going to earn it. If they get to 8 or 9 wins, that's going to be earned. They should take care of Georgia State, although Georgia State played pretty well. We'll get to that. Old Dominion maybe has found their guy. We'll see about App State and Marshall at home. So they got Georgia State and Marshall at home, and they're at Old Dominion and at App State in lovely Boone, North Carolina. All right, let's take a timeout. In the last segment, we'll go over the standings. Cajuns are the only undefeated team in the Sun Belt. But we will also talk about App State getting their first win since the storm came rumbling through. And then they had the concerts for Carolina in Charlotte, raising $24 million. Outstanding job there. Was it Luke Combs and Eric Church? Just a great job there. So we will talk about that and App State's win right after I tell you about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. When you take Game Time Picks, you're given priority. Curation makes it easier to save money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. All in pricing. You get to toggle this feature, and it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And then you get to see where you're sitting. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And Game Time Tickets gives you the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. First home game for App State since the storms came through at the end of September. Remember, Liberty was canceled, and then they've been on the road, and then I think they had an off week in there as well. So it's been a minute. Maybe not, didn't have an off week. Maybe not. But they played Marshall on the road, the Cajuns on the road. Yeah, there has to be an off week in there, somewhere in there. And then Georgia State at home, and it was 7 points. And I mean, Georgia State just hasn't been very good as of late. So I picked App State, showing support, I guess, to the Mountaineers at home. And oddly enough, it was 2-0 at the end of one. And then, maybe Georgia State found their quarterback. Zach Gibson, not bad. 16 out of 22, 192 yards and a touchdown. Ran it a few times, but not for very many yards. And this game was back and forth. 2-0, App, 3-2, Georgia State. Georgia State actually led it 10-8. Then App takes a 15-10 lead. It's 16-10, and then 16-15, and then 18-16 App at halftime. Crazy. App does take a 25-16 lead, and you thought maybe, and then I should say Georgia State then scores a touchdown, gets within 2. It's 25-23, and App State is going to make it a 2-score game, except Amani Marshall fumbles on the Georgia State 15-yard line on 3rd and 8. And they were going to be stopped short. I don't know if they were going to go for it or not, but they're going to be stopped short of the first down. But he fumbles, and then Georgia State marches down the field. And unfortunately for them, all they could do was score a field goal to take a 1-point lead, 26-25. But a really nice drive led by Gibson. And then comes App State. And this is where, Joy Aguilar, and, he steps up. A lot of Kanye Roberts on this drive. Kanye Roberts, 10 yards. Kanye Roberts and Amani Marshall, Kanye Roberts for 13 yards. How many third downs did they have on this drive? They had 1 third down on 3rd and 1, and that was it. On a 10-play drive, they had 1 third down. That tells you they were doing a good job offensively. And then, so they take the lead on a Aguilar pass to Kanan Hamlet for 4 yards, and they made the 2-point conversion. And then Georgia State just could not get anything going. They did not even get a first down. And I guess as a benefit to me, App State pushes. That's better than a loss. 33-26. Again, they snap a 3-game losing streak, and their first win since the storm hit the area. Must have felt good just to see friends and family. Everybody's been working so hard up there. And then all the money raised for the concert for Carolina's outstanding. Saw the videos. Saw James Taylor playing Carolina on my mind. I mean, you just got to get chills when he's singing that. So good job by App State. Again, kind of a win and move on. Sad to say that, if they lost that ball game, I don't know if Sean Clark would be the coach come Monday. I mean, it's sad as much as I pain to say that. Again, I don't know if the Storm's going to, save his job, right? There's different priorities than, how good the football team is. At the same time, how much that football program means to the area. And, it needs to lift people up. But then there's, financial considerations. So that's a whole deal. So it would have been bad for Coach Clark had they lost that ball game, admittedly so. But they do win it. And let's see who they have left. App State has, huge ball game against Old Dominion. That's at home. They're at Coastal Carolina, James Madison, and at Georgia Southern against their rival. So, I mean, are they going to be favored against any of those teams? They're not going to be favored. I don't think Old Dominion is going to be favored by more than 3, but I'm not sure. Let's see. The lines came out. Let's see. I can do quickly. Didn't think about doing this, but the lines have come out. Let's see what they are. I'm going to guess that ODU is by 2.5. Let's see here. No, App State is favored by 3. That's home field advantage. All right, so App State is favored by 3. We'll see what that start. We'll see where that finishes, by the way. And winning on the road is hard. Remember, we've said that. All right, so quickly, let's go over the standings. In the East, Georgia Southern leads. Well, actually not. Old Dominion is up top, so I don't know why. I guess Georgia Southern has one more win overall, right? Old Dominion should be leading the East. They're in first place because they beat Georgia Southern. So they're in first place. Georgia Southern is in second place. Marshall is 2-1. They're in third place. James Madison 2-2. They're in fourth. Coastal is 1-2. They had the week off. App State gets their first win. They're in sixth place. And Georgia State drops to 0-4. They are in seventh place. In the West, big ball game coming up Tuesday night. You got the Cajuns 3-0 against Texas State 2-1. ULM with their loss, they fall to second, a half a game behind the Cajuns. Arkansas State with the win, they're 3-1. They're tied for second. South Alabama up to 3-1. They're tied for second, and Texas State is behind them in fifth. Southern Miss and Troy tied for last. Neither team has a win so far this season in the Sun Belt. Again, everybody in the West is rooting for Texas State because then you have a 5-way tie. And again, that'll play itself out because teams are playing each other still. But certainly that would make my head hurt if you want to sit here and figure out a 5-way tie for first place. So I'm not even going to start to think about that just yet. But it's a big ball game. We talked about it. Texas State has never beaten Louisiana. Should have done it last year and did not. Zion Chris saved the day, and G.J. Kinney went for it at the end of the half instead of kicking a field goal. I think there may have been an interception for T.J. Finley in there, and they kind of gave the game away. Texas State has kind of been playing, we mentioned this last week, kind of been playing, the way South Alabama did last year, just not up to their potential. And they've gotten bit, a couple of times, Arizona State and Sam Houston, and, they have not looked all that good this year. They have a chance to redeem themselves, that's for sure. They have a chance to put themselves, I guess, in the driver's seat in the division, certainly in a driver's seat if they win. So, ULM, Texas State, the Cajuns, everyone's going to be the same thing. So again, it's going to be crazy on what that comes down to. We will wait until we have to worry about it for tiebreakers. All right. Again, thank you so much. Almost 1,600 subscribers. Really thrilled about that. We had a big week last week. hopefully have another big week this week. Happy Halloween to everybody. Please stay safe. We're going to get that time change here next weekend. Not really happy about that, or whenever it is. We're all going to be in the dark for the next 6 months, but it is what it is. Again, thank you so much. Please tell everybody about Lockdown Sunbelt. Get them to subscribe to the YouTube channel, also Apple Podcast and Spotify. Appreciate it. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. You've been listening and watching to Lockdown Sunbelt, your team every day.